Oh, good day, family. Put my earrings back on. I like to wear my little earrings. Good day and gratitude. Good day and gratitude. I know, another night with the ancestors. Well, I don't know which reading I like best. Learning about our heroes and sheroes, our inventors, and or learning, about their resilience, their strength and courage of our ancestors. It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. I'll never forget my ancestors. Mm-mm. And I know for me, I won't ever put them on the back burner again. Sure won't, honey. Not me. I don't live for nobody else. I'm going to live for my ancestors. And I hope my grandchildren and great-grandchildren feel the same way about me. No matter what happens. So yeah, we just forgive each other. I forgive all of us. Mm-hmm. And we the ones that have been lied to and manipulated, being so trusting. And it's almost destroyed us. Almost. Because we still in the running, y'all. We still here. As long as we still here, we got a chance. So let's just read tonight. Yeah, let's just read tonight. Let's just get the fundamentals out the way. Oh, these are my receipts. You go on the channel, everybody be saying, oh, I got them receipts. I come with receipts. Everybody got their receipts. So I guess this right here is mine. Having all my little notes and stuff. But yeah, we're just going to read tonight. Oh. Hi there, Causal. Good to see you. Yeah, I was on earlier at 12. I might have been a few minutes later, but yeah, I was on. Yeah, it's good to see everybody. Yeah. And I am Face the Nation. We are on Bolden Unchained. And we are here again. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We are here to assist Black America and Black media. Black America and Black media. With the uncovering and the condemning of the many agendas, events, projects, operations, bills, codes, compromises, acts, laws, the many sabotages against Black America. There's many studies and experiments that we don't even have a clue about. It's almost like a whole underworld. And we're here to expose it. We're going to uncover everything. And we're going to lay it out for Black America because Black America needs healing. We are in another awakening. We're in another awakening. And our mission on Bolden Unchained is to find out why we have so much self-hate. Our brother and pastor, Dr. Ray Hagen's coined it dedicated ignorance. What is this dedicated ignorance? Where does it stem from? We know it as self-hate when we talk to each other, when we communicate with each other. Anyone can say it, self-hate, and we know prosperity, what they're referring to. And brother, Pastor Dr. Ray Hagins, he coined it as dedicated ignorance. So when you hear me say or someone else mention dedicated ignorance, or for a minute I was saying disciplined ignorance, but I found the original note that I had from him. And it is dedicated ignorance. When you see that, you will know that's just a professional terminology, I guess, for self-hatred, for the self-hatred. And self-hatred is a self-defeating dogma. Let's read a little bit about how he coined the definition of it. Dedicated ignorance. Undo or reverse ideas and concepts that have been programmed into the minds of our people by the religious statements and church doctrines that have caused them to adopt a belief system that has resulted in their loss of contact with what is real, factual, historical, and spiritual. That is a dedicated ignorance. Refusing to learn. Refusing to accept another possibility. You know, for a long time, what they say, insanity was doing the same thing over and over again. You know, dedicated ignorance is akin to that. You know, so yeah, we are here to expose all of this, and we will condemn it. Yeah, that's why we're here. We will condemn it. We will critique it, discuss it, and yeah, we're going to condemn it. We do not condone any violence, then or now, against our people. And we are looking through a spiritual lens, y'all. I must say that every time. We are here. Here. I don't know about other places and stuff. I don't know how they clean their house. But right here, we looking through a spiritual lens, y'all. We're not looking to forgive the atrocities that our people have endured, that we're still suffering under the oppression of. Yeah. We probably one movement away from our whole existence as we know it being rolled all the way back. Being rolled all the way back. You know, we're probably a few movements away from that. We better move carefully, Black American. We better move together. We got to find out about this self-hate so we can heal us. Until we get the healing that we need, Black America, we are going to remain divided, separated. We're going to be divided in more ways. You know, we're already divided in so many different ways. It's like we ain't no kin to each other. It's like we don't even have anything in common because the self-hatred has saturated. It has saturated us collectively, and we got to find out why. We got to find out why, and we got to fix it because we need healing. So we're looking through a spiritual lens of loyalty. Who are you loyal to? Whose side are you on? Where's your faith? We look through a spiritual lens of resilience. When we read and learn all of the horrific travesties that our people have endured, everyone, we know about Emmett Till and Mary Turner, but there's so many. It was like 4,000 lynches in the United States from, 1877 to 1950. 2 years before my mama was born. And these are the ones that were documented, not the ones that weren't documented, which were still going on. But since we don't have those statistics, we'll just try to keep it by the book right here. And these are my opinions. My opinions. And I imagine some of it may be wrong. Because, yeah, I did not graduate. I do not have any degrees. You know, it's just my common sense and what I'm thinking about from my experiences, what I've seen, what I've learned, what I've witnessed happening to my people. Black people. And right here at this time, right here, my only concern, my only focus, yours too if you hear, is Black people. The well-being, the welfare, and the sanity of Black America. The sanity. 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 Is Black America going insane? Is Black America still sane enough? Because I believe if it wasn't for our elders and our critical thinkers, our mentors, still holding on to some type of tether to our resilience, we wouldn't even have the left of the part of the, I don't know, our sanity that we do have. I feel like collectively we're on the brink. Black America is. We're on the brink of just giving it all up, letting it all be whatever it's gonna be. But we can't do that. We got babies. We got a future in them. I know sometimes we feel like we just want to give up. Just going to give up. We ready to go. We ready to go, but we can't go. We cannot go. We cannot give up and leave our babies dealing with this. Because ain't nobody had no healing. We know we ain't had no healing. Dr. Joy DeGraw told us we ain't never had no healing. From nothing. Not slavery, not after slavery, not during Jim Crow, Reconstruction, Depression, whatever it is. Even all the things that we're learning. All the massacres. And the many, it's so many massacres. They call them race riots, but we know they wasn't no race riots. When nobody rioting but white folks. Black people were defending themselves, running for their lives. And that's why we're here. We're trying to see what's going on with Black America. Who did it? Malcolm asked that question decades ago. Who taught you to hate yourself? We never answered. We never answered him. And after he was assassinated, we still haven't answered that one question, Black America. Who taught you to hate yourself? Who's more important in our lives that we give them that much power to make us hate each other? We can't even look at each other. We're going into a whole new world order that none of us ever seen. No one alive has ever seen this new world that's being rolled out. No one alive has ever seen it. That shit is unprecedented. And it ought to make y'all wonder if everybody, everybody in our society, we talking about United States here, black and white. I know it's so many other people here too, honey, but you better keep your eyes open. Keep your head on a swivel, because they all feel like white folks. A majority of them do. So just watch yourself, Black America. Just watch yourself. But it just makes me wonder, how much more can you do to us? How much more do you plan to do to us, white America? And we ain't paying attention. They're going to do as much as we let them, Black America. They're going to keep doing it as much as we let them. And for all the love that everybody feels for us, it's a shame that it's false. That ain't no love. Ain't nobody ever been sincere with Black America. Ain't nobody ever said, hey, we love them. We forgave everybody for slavery. We forgave everybody for slavery. And then for me, personally, I'm just now finding out about this Red Summer and racial violence. Racial violence in the United States. Racial violence in Kentucky, lynching in Duluth. We got so many books. 100 years of lynching. We got to find out. I want to know. You may not want to know, but I want to know. Who taught us to hate ourselves? Why do we hate ourselves? And yeah, this right here where I'm starting at, everybody know I'm the last one at the fight. I'm just now making it here to sit down. And it's just by the mercy of the ancestors we reading this. Because the ancestors want us to find out, why do we hate ourselves? Who? Malcolm still up there. He must be still up there asking us, who taught us to hate ourselves? Because that's why I'm here. That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know, and I'm going to find out. Y'all might not be ready for it. You might not want to do this. You free to go. I forgive you for that. I forgive us. See, I can forgive us because I know we've been so hurt and so traumatized. No, a lot of us ain't even going to have the personal freedom to speak up what needs to be said. You're going to find everything else to speak up about, but you do that. Yeah, you can do it other ways. You ain't got to come at it with this right here. Get into science. Get into some science. You ain't got to come at the history. I do this. I love to read, honey. This is one of my loves now. I didn't even know I loved it, history. But yeah, I love history when it's about us. When it's about us, honey, I want to know everything I can. And then Brother Augustus Corbett with the Defiant Lawyers Network told us to learn about the civil rights anyway. He told us to start learning. Decide to be courageous. Learn about the Civil Rights Act. He gave us a couple of things we can start doing. And he gave white America some things to do too. But yeah, I didn't know that history would be something that's so interesting to me. But it is. Because see, Black America, once we turn the focus and we stop glorifying white folks, stop glorifying the white man. Okay, some of us got to send our babies to the school. Send them to school if you must. But when they come home, still teach them. We got to still teach them. Because I only was taught at school. I didn't have any other teachings other than school. And it's very important, Black America, that we pass on the knowledge. If we don't pass on the knowledge, you see the way these folks is whitewashing stuff. Hell, they banning books. I'm waiting on them to ban this book. Yeah, honey, this ours right here. But I'm waiting on them to ban this book. And when they do, honey, I'm going to put it right in my bag. Yeah. We got to start teaching our babies and stuff. We don't know what this new world finna look like. I wish I could explain to y'all. That movie, Fifth Element. Is it going to be something like that? It's finna be, yeah, it's unprecedented. No one has ever seen anything like this. Don't be looking in awe. Y'all, we can't be looking in awe, and we can't be thinking that this is the greatest, best thing, because it's not for us. Don't be glorifying it like it's the ninth wonder of the world or something, because it's not. It's not. Trust me. This right here is gonna be if it is what I think it's gonna be. This is gonna be a captivity we probably won't get out of, because it's not flesh and bone. This right here is all metal still. So we must unlearn and relearn. We must stay together. We must unite. We must come up with solutions and tools and resources that we'll be able to use. We got to be able to feed ourselves and our babies. We got to have water. We're going to have the fundamental necessities. Heat when it's cold. When it's cold, we're going to need some heat. Like the wintertime, it's cold now. We need heat. When it get hot, we really don't need air, but it would be nice to have some. So we do have a lot of things to work on to catch up, on this channel. I'm hoping that most of y'all are already caught up, because I am behind. I did start a small garden about 2 years ago, an inside garden. and I was watching the Lead Farmer 73 and Lady Led. And yeah, they inspired me to start my garden, and I started it. If I find some pictures in that old phone, I'll probably put them up. But it was growing good, y'all, and I was really proud of it. We have to get back to that. I remember my great grandmama and my great aunties used to have like a mason jar in the window with a potato in it. You know, and they'd be growing the vines out of it. You know, they would have some of their preferences that they were growing and stuff, you know. So it's really not a stranger to us. We just didn't grasp onto it. We didn't pick it up and utilize it. For our generation and the generation before us, that was like, you know, my great auntie. But, you know, after then and stuff, it just seemed to kind of like fell off. I guess we were kind of conditioned to just go to the store and buy the tomatoes and the onions and the potatoes and stuff instead of having it, you know, readily accessible at home. So now we got to relearn that all over again and put it into practice. That's what we got to do. And I want to get the copyright disclaimer out of the way. We're not going to be here all night tonight because I'm going to go straight into reading. As soon as I read this right here and say whatever I think I'm trying to say. I don't really have a lot. Got a lot on my mind though. But the copyright disclaimer under 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Did I read this already? But yeah, y'all see that the deportations have started? Yeah, the deportations have already started. I saw one video and there was so many people that were leaving America. Yeah, there was like maybe 50,000 people, and they were leaving. And tonight when I got home, I saw another video. They selling their vehicles before they go. Yeah, they selling their vehicles before they go. And you know, that's not our problem, Black America. You know, I do feel some sympathy for everyone because being displaced. It's a terrible thing being displaced, you know. And I just hope everybody make it where they going safely. You know, I hope white folks and ICE or whoever is not chasing them folks when they at their most vulnerable, you know, and trying to get somewhere safe like they did Black people. I hope they don't do them people like that. Let them get somewhere safe so they can begin to, you know, repair their lives and get their home and their families settled somewhere. You know, we just not cold-hearted. You know, we not cold-hearted. We do hope that all those people make it somewhere and get themselves settled and safe for their own families. Now, we're not sitting here gloating because they had to go. But you got to go, you got to go. You know, that's out of our hands. So, you know, we do sympathize and have empathy for other folks, but our focus right here is Black America. That's it and that's all. You know, we ain't trying to marry nobody so they can stay here. We ain't trying to, you know, take on no additional, you know, responsibilities. If it ain't us, we will help other folks. Because like I said, we're not cold-hearted. But right here, our main focus is Black America. Yeah, there's plenty of other people out there that can step up and that can, you know, do the slight things that we can't do right now. You know, we need to give most, if not all, of our attention to us. I'm not, you know, we're not going to ignore a baby that's in need right there, you know. We'll pick the baby up, nourish the baby, nurture the baby, take the baby to the hospital or something. We just not going to be evil, anti-life with anyone. But our main focus, first and finally, is Black America. And that's how it's going to be, right here. Whatever happens, we're going to be here to discuss Black America. And y'all, look, we are on chapter 9. We finally made it. It's halfway through the book. We're going to say halfway. Because some of this back here is this, the context, some of this the index and stuff like that. So see, I'll say we halfway. Yes, this is our third textbook. This is our third textbook. First, there was Red Summer, the summer of 1919, and the awakening of Black America. Black America, I didn't even know we had an awakening. My whole life, I didn't even know about Tulsa. And I didn't graduate high school, but I went to the 11th grade. And they never did tell me about it. They never taught me about this. So hell, I didn't really learn nothing anyway that I needed to learn. Then our second textbook was Racial Violence in Kentucky, 1865 to 1940. Yeah, you heard that right. 1865. Yeah, that was the year we were physically free. 1865 to 1940. That was that book. It was in Kentucky, the state of Kentucky. Now, Kentucky did not stop. Kentuckians did not stop in 1940. But that book, it was just to 1940. And this here, our third textbook is Racial Violence in the United States. Yeah, I'm sleepy too. You probably are too, ain't you? Racial Violence in the United States. And we're on chapter 9. I know we're doing this. Let me see if brother got his book. Because we have family that have his book also. And so when he get his book, then he's going to be reading with us. Hi, Cornell. It's so nice to see you. Come on in. Yeah, we just reading. We're going to get right to reading tonight. Yeah, we're going to get right to reading tonight because I know we got a lot of things on our mind. A lot is happening out there. We just need to keep our focus on Black America. What does all of this chaos out here mean for us? Because remember in the draft riots now, and that was like in 1863, a few years before the Civil War, and white America, wealthy white people, I can't find the notes, wealthy white people were able to pay so that they didn't have to be drafted. But the other whites, and I think it was some Irish people in New York, they didn't have the money, so they were getting drafted. And they were pissed. They were beginning to feel like, oh, we gotta do this to help free Black people. They it didn't set well with them. They were mad at the draft. They were attacking them at first, the office and stuff, and the people that worked it for the draft stuff, they was attacking them at first. And then all of a sudden they just reasoned that, hey, why we got to be the ones that help Black America? Why we got to be the ones that sacrifice ourselves? Then they thought about it. They reasoned, I guess. Then they reasoned that all of these free Black people finna come up here and take our jobs. And next thing you know, honey, everybody's attention focused. They focus shifted from that right over there to Black America. And they just started, attacking Black people. That was there. Yeah. In New York. I've been reading about it and stuff. And Shay's Rebellion. And what was the other one? Whiskey Rebellion. I read a little bit about them, because I had wrote them down. And I wanted to see, what did they, what happened with them? What did they mean for Black people? And that was the draft riots, Yeah, they shifted their focus from one issue to Black America. And they just started attacking Black America. So, yeah, sometimes I be wondering, when is their attention finna shift again to Black America? Because we always seem to be the blame for everything. Even though we not. The Civil War was about us and we didn't even cause it. Now I know what they meant when I used to hear that. The Civil War was about Black folks, but Black folks didn't even cause it. Yeah, that's because they wanted to keep us in the South and reap all the benefits. And in the North, they didn't want them to reap all the benefits. But imagine if they had decided, hey, how about y'all split your profit you getting from the slave? And you send your bulk of it, up north, we probably never would have been freed, because everybody would have been in agreement, and it was the law. Imagine how much harder our ancestors would have had to fight for our freedom. And, their allies, John Brown, too. John Brown was the white man. He sacrificed himself and his 2 sons, opposing slavery. But just imagine, I'd be thinking about that if they had went the other way. Because they sneaky, man. They some sneaky folks. Prosperity. Chapter 9, Patterns in American Racial Violence. This book right here is a little different from racial violence in Kentucky. It's a lot different. It has a lot more statistics. See, racial violence in Kentucky, it had more of the stories and the experiences of the lynchings. It didn't really have a lot of statistics and graphs and stuff like this one here does. And the other one had pictures. This one right here don't have any pictures in it, or I would have shown them. Yeah, it's just got the graphs and stuff, but it's really good reading. It makes me wonder, how far back did they set these textbooks, so that they wouldn't be easily accessible. Yeah, so we got some work to do. We finna find out. We are finding out why Black America is experiencing this dedicated ignorance, this self-hate throughout our whole collective. Yeah. Chapters 10 through 12 attempt to bring some kind of intellectual order out of the violent events previously described. For chapter 10, I have chosen selections which I have the modest goal of isolation of repeated patterns in American racial violence. Repeated patterns. Let's see. Let's read. In the first paper, I have attempted to gain a perspective on patterns of violence in this country by comparing our racial violence with that which has begun to occur in Britain in the past decade. This is followed by 2 of my own papers on patterns in police behavior and on the ecology of rioting. Oh. See, it's a lot of, this is deep. It's going to be deep. The whole book is. I'm just like, wow. Whoever would have thought. I mean, we are actually reading. I've read words I've never seen. I mean, for a sentence to be this long, yeah. Good thing I like to read. Yeah, but we're going to do it, though. We all going to read. We all going to read and contribute something to the healing of Black America. So is, y'all. This is the beginning right here. The chapter continues with selections dealing with the characteristics of those who get caught up in violent disorders. Akers and Fox, A-K-E-R-S. Akers and Fox analyzed the characteristics of rioters convicted and imprisoned after the 1943 Detroit riot. Now, racial violence in Kentucky was 1865 to 1940. The Detroit riot was 1943. So, see, I have a problem with the chronological order. I always have. But the era in the Kentucky book to 1940, and this book right here has other eras in it. 1943, as we just read right here, it's like 1947. I think we read something from 1953, an episode. It may have been a massacre, or maybe just, just referencing something to that year. But we've never had any peace. Ever had any peace from white America. White America has never left us alone. Yeah. We are here to find out why. What happened to Black America? Who did it? That's what I want to know. Who did it? Yeah, you ain't got to sit there and wonder what you gonna do. Tell my people to get the hell away from them. That's what I'm gonna do. But yeah, we're gonna be fair. We are fairly figuring it out. What happened to Black America? And I know all the many issues. Oh, we got away from God. Oh, we didn't finish high school like me. You know, we got caught up in drugs, gambling, you know, whatever the excuse may be, but why? Why? What made that happen? I see all of those issues happen because of something. And, you know, going back as far as I could, you know, I ended up stopping here. I think it was divine because if I had to choose this era, the era of slavery, I would have chose enslaved when we were enslaved. But yeah, you know, I'm the last one here at this fight that I think. And so I just started after slavery. Red Summer was after slavery. You know, and I did not know about this violence after slavery. I knew about slavery. We all knew about slavery. The whole world knows about slavery. You know, I don't think there's anyone alive that can say they didn't know about the enslavement of Black Americans. But after slavery, I had no idea. I had no idea. Ain't nobody said a word or a whisper what happened after slavery. And it was in like 2013 when Trayvon was murdered by George Zimmerman that I learned about Tulsa 1921. But I didn't know the specifics of it. And even then, you know, it being Black Wall Street, it seemed like it was kind of isolated. I guess because it's been compressed, you know. And then perhaps myself too, because I'm really not a cosmopolitan. I ain't never traveled nowhere or been anywhere, you know. So I guess all of those things right there left me unprepared to deal with this right here. Yeah, it left me very unprepared to deal with the truth of what has happened to my people. Because I didn't know. No, I did not know. I didn't know about the babies being set on logs so that alligators could get the babies. Our babies. So much in our history, you know, that I did not know. The lynchings. Literally burning the Black man on a fire. On building a fire up. See, I wasn't prepared for none of that. I'm still not prepared for any of that. You know, in the many books that we're gonna read, you know, it kind of make me feel a little anxious, you know, having anxiety and stuff. Cause yeah, that's what we reading and stuff. Look at here, hostility, aggression, and violence. That's all this is right here, but it must be done. You know, all I could do it is, you know, at nighttime, you know, and have time to process it. Because if I do it in the daytime, yeah, I'm probably going to be the one that, you know, that ain't going to handle it well. You know, going out with this being unresolved. So, you know, the ancestors, they were very wise to suggest and prompt me to do this at midnight. So we all can have time to sleep and process it, you know, because it happened. This did happen. We survived it. This did happen and we survived it. We're still here. You know, vengeance is not ours. Not for slavery or this. Or what's happening today. What's going to happen tomorrow, next year, the future. That vengeance ain't ours. All of that vengeance belongs to the ancestors. That's their vengeance. I know y'all saying right now, there she go with that shit again. The Lord said, vengeance is mine. And you know how I feel up in here. We are not religious up in here. Because if we're going to get religious and stuff, honey, I'm going to have to pull out my receipts. I sure am, honey. Because y'all going to have to stand face to face with William Joseph Simmons and his spiritual vision. where he seen the Ku Klux Klan galloping across the sky in robes, on horses. So, that's y'all. You and them. That's y'all disagreement. I already know. I ain't going to be in no heaven. And my ancestors ain't in heaven. We in the afterlife. So, see, that's y'all. I'm just trying to get y'all to see that, hey, which one of y'all lying? Because he's in the book too. I know you got the Bible. I know your book is the Bible. His book is history. I know myself, this book is true. These people lived. This stuff happened. Now, the Bible, they said it's true. I don't know. I don't know. Somebody had to print it. But I know for this book right here, these people in this book right here, they did live. And they suffered. My ancestors did. And the people that did it, they lived too. They lived. They lived. I can't even say they suffering now. Because if they in heaven, they ain't suffering. They riding horses, still doing the same thing that they were doing right here. Riding horses through the field. In robes. What they tell you? They the Klansmen. Overseers. Yeah, but the Klansmen was the ones riding the horses, The overseers in the field, they didn't always have on their robes and stuff. I guess they did sometimes, but hell, it was hot during the daytime. The Klansmen came out at night. But hey, I didn't even know all of this stuff, so don't let me get to acting like I know how they act and how they roamed about terrorizing and stuff. But I know in the movies that I've seen, they always came out at nighttime in their robes and stuff. But hey, that's what he said. He had the vision of that, And it's just, it's too much to be decisive about. So yeah, you still welcome to be here. Just keep it to yourself. Because I'm spiritual myself. And it's probably gonna be people in here that ain't neither one of us. They ain't religious or spiritual. Shit, they may be what is the other word? Yeah, something. But yeah, so I'm not gonna even, be like you can't be religious, because I know black people need hope. Honey, we need hope so bad. We just taking it however they give it to us. We ain't questioning it or nothing. We ain't tried to think about it to see our way through it and could it be? We ain't even thought about it. Whoa, we gonna be in heaven with the same people that terrorized us forever. We ain't even thought about that. We just put all of us in heaven together. Damn this thing. Because we don't think for ourselves, see? We do not think for ourselves. We done put everybody that's done been tortured in heaven with the same ones that's done tortured. Talking about, ain't no pain, ain't no hunger. Everybody's together. Everybody, it's just free face. No, it ain't. How you gonna sit there and say that? You saying one thing, he's saying something else. The other Bible's saying something else too. All of y'all got all these splits in your religion. But if it's supposed to be just one, then which one is it? Who is it? I know, all I know is God and Jesus from where I'm from. But since, I done relocated. So now I know about Yahweh and Yahushua. And then there's Jehovah, But then I also been reading about Krishna and Buddha and Dionysus and Horus and Heru, that Mary, Joseph, and the baby supposed to be Asar, Set, and Heru. So, see, I don't even know if y'all know about that. But, I digress. Personally, for me, I don't even prefer to call cosmic energy none of these names y'all got. I want to let all y'all keep all of them names that y'all got. Because I'm fine to just leave cosmic energy as it is. Cosmic energy. That cosmic energy was up there before anybody even uttered a syllable. Before anybody even said Yahweh, it was up there. So yeah, I prefer to leave it like that. Because it's too much time. It's too much time and complex, consideration to see Who is right? Who telling the truth? Who really lying? All because we won't do our studies. We won't learn. No, we ain't learned. We just took that one exit and stayed on it. And we swear up and down, this is it. This is the way. This is the life. But then somebody else swearing the same thing. I swear this is it. This is the way. This is the life. And then somebody else, I swear this is it. This is the way. This is the light. All of y'all saying the same old thing. Ain't nobody saying nothing about cosmic energy. Can cosmic energy be free? That's where I be coming from. So I know, yeah, I'm spiritual. Yeah, I ain't gonna put it in no box. I don't care how good you make it sound. Cosmic energy. It didn't have no name. Till they named it and told us what it was called. They named it and told us what it was called. Well, maybe they did get it off of them papyruses. You know, the first paper. I know the Egyptians left, us love on the walls and stuff. So I don't know. You get your religious channel going. Yeah, get your religious channel going. I'll come. Why not, right? It'll be interesting. I'll come. Yeah, I'll be respectful and stuff. But hey, I got my own views. Yeah, but I'll come. Get your religious channel then. Yeah, let us know. Put it in the chat. And we'll come on up in there, And yeah, because I believe that cosmic energy manifested the black woman and the black man. Yeah, you have a really good channel. Because I ain't coming up in there with no sugar and I ain't looking for none. Yeah, I want to know these things. See, religion ain't telling us what we need to know. Even what the other receive that? Religion is nothing but the path of understanding divinity. Religion is understanding of divinity. Divinity is the knowledge of the cosmology, the ecology, and your relationship to it. Because everything works as one. So your relationship to it, that's divinity. Religion ain't teaching us our relationship to the cosmology and the ecology. No, I spent my whole life until I left my mama when I was 16, because I was a teenage mother, in church and stuff, going to church, sitting in there all day and stuff, all night. Sometimes 2 times a day, 3 times a week, just sitting up in there and stuff. Ain't told us about hugging a tree. My church didn't. I bet I can go to one of them churches right today, now. Old as I am, they still ain't telling nobody how to love a tree, how to hug a tree, how to be one with nature. Because in my opinion, it ain't teaching divinity. It's teaching forgiveness and forget. It's a crutch for black people. That's how I see it. It's a crutch for black people. We can't think for ourselves because we got to forgive. And once you forgive, that's it. You don't need to think about it. You don't need to mull it over. You don't need to consider what else can I do? What else can be done? You forgiven it. You forgiven it and let it go and it's gone. That's how religion is. You forget it and you forgive it and it's gone. But you see what that's done to us? Forgiving this, forgetting this. It's been our whole detriment. We might not even have a future as a people because we always forgive this right here. How many agendas do we have against us, Black America? That have been taught. Everybody got this same mindset right here. Everybody hate us the same way. But strangely, ironically, it seemed like we almost best friends with white people. You see how that is? It's so fucked up, ain't it? It's like, wow, we look around and be like, damn, black people are so close with white folks now. I'm like, yeah, they used reverse psychology on us. They really did. They got us good. And this right here is just finna finna prove to us, what we really about. Let me cover that up because I really don't even care how many people is in here, honey. I got to do what the ancestors told me to do. Yeah. But, it's just like after all of this has happened. Now, granted, I know everybody didn't know about this. I know a lot of us did because education is different wherever you live. Where I'm from and them little hick towns and stuff and the bottom part of down south, honey, they ain't teaching nothing. And I can just imagine, hell, if they ass banning books, hell, the school didn't have a 200. I'm just throwing a number out there because you know how that man got. And I'm throwing them numbers out there that time. But, yeah, they ain't got but a handful of books. So can you imagine if they banning books too? Shit, go get them books, y'all. Here, start your damn personal library. Go get the books and start your personal library. Don't bring home no Amelia Bedelia and what's that other one? Cat in the Hat. Don't bring home all of that shit. Go get you some good stuff for them black babies. Get black books. It don't even matter what the subject is. Just get black books. It could be books on anything. It could be brave, inspiring for them. It could just be, entertainment that'll be teaching them and stuff. Cause see, while you reading this right here about Sarah Rector, you'll be teaching them about Sarah Rector. She was the richest little black girl in America. Yeah, the richest black girl in America. See, get all them books and stuff when you see them. Get books like that right there. George Washington Carver. And see, while you at home and you teaching your babies and stuff, they're going to be learning. Then when they get in school and stuff, then they get talking about, and Christopher Columbus, this, your baby going to stand up and say, excuse me, Miss Kathy, you lying. You could call my mom and tell her I said lying, but that's not a cuss word. But you lying. Christopher Columbus is not a hero. That's what we got to do if we're going to keep our babies in these public schools. If we're going to keep them in these public schools, that's what we got to do. What else you going to do? I don't have a problem starting a kids channel, which I got one in mind anyway. But it'll probably be on a separate platform and stuff because I wouldn't want them to see this channel and be thinking, oh, it's school, it's lesson, reading, books. And then they click on it. And if they are able to make some understanding of what I'm reading and talking about and stuff, they would definitely have some nightmares. So, but yeah, I would like to do that. And I could read some of my grandbabies' books on the channel and stuff. I could even have them reading with me on that channel. But yeah, start your channel too. We need all that we can get. What don't we as a people understand? Do we think we need like 10 teachers, 10 platforms, 100 platforms? We need every platform. If you good in math, reading, science, you need to have all the platforms. Maybe have just one platform with all of them in different times so that you can come on air and we can come on air like your classroom. And we'll be able to teach each other because we got to learn these fundamental things. We didn't learn this. And we need to know this. To me, this right here is our healing. Your classes, your platforms are our healing. Yeah, this is where mine is. This is what the ancestors told me start with. If they hadn't have told me, if I hadn't listened to the ancestors and started with this, if I'd have been thinking, oh, people going to be mad and people going to be all upset and it's finna start a riot. I can't read that stuff. People ain't ready for that. I'd have been reading Helen Keller. We all would have been crying, having so much sympathy and empathy for the white woman. We wouldn't have been able to receive this when I got to it. So I just had to listen to them and do what they said do. And this is where we started at. Yeah, but please, Black America, we need y'all to get y'all platforms too. We all got to do this together. Yeah, it ain't no one person do it and everybody just sit back and wait and, and think it's cool and stuff because we ain't got that long to do this. And on the other side of things, I hope everybody else is, is fighting them battles out there. So when that tide shifts and everything starts rolling over on us and stuff, they can be like, hold up, wait a minute. Black America ain't got nothing to do with all of that. Because right now we need to have all our focus on our healing. Our healing. We ain't gonna have nobody we can come to in this new world. Ain't nobody coming to our rescue. All these people, ain't nobody coming to our rescue. They gonna let happen. Whatever happens, they gonna let it happen. Hell, if somebody propose, re-enslavement, society gonna let it happen again. So see, we the only ones that that's on our side. Yeah, that's what the elder said, and I didn't know that either. But now that I do know, all I can do is tell us the truth of what's happening, what's going on. I don't know where we going. I don't know where we going, honey. I don't know where these people been stirring Black America to. Y'all been watching these people steer us for year after year after year after decade. Y'all ought to know where these people are steering us. I mean, it's like, wow, what have y'all been doing? What has Black America been doing to let this get out of hand like this? Yeah, it's out of hand. It is very out of hand. This is out of order. It's so much anti-life out here, y'all. We won't even be able to have babies anymore. Yeah, they got an egg, an incubator. You can have babies. Set it right there in the corner. And it's got like the oil thing on your car when you got to get the oil changed and stuff. The oil filter. And it's just that, it's made like a canister like that right there. And you just screw it in. That's all you do to feed the baby. Yep, I don't know if it was real or not. That was like 6-7 years ago I seen that. And I was like, wow, for real? You can set it in the corner and you can watch your baby grow while you go out working, traveling, singing, whatever you do. Then your baby be right there in the corner growing. Yep, for the future. That's going to be for the future now. And the cars and the flying cars and the robots and the robot dogs and stuff, all of that's going to be for the future. So, yeah, I'm just kind of like, wow, really? We better have Black babies and we better heal us and we better do it quick. Because, yeah, that's, honey. A chapter of the National Advisory Commission report was devoted to describing riot participants, as was a supplemental study undertaken by Fogelson and Hill for the commission. These 3 selections are followed by another brief piece in which I try to untangle some of the conflicting views of Black response to current disorders. The final 3 selections include a piece by Weisberg, Weisberg, on the interaction of law and law enforcement with violence related to civil rights activities, a summary of patterns of disorder discerned, DISCERNED, a summary of patterns of disorder discerned by the National Advisory Commission in its work, and a paper by Spiegel, SPIEGEL, in which he attempts to delineate, DILENEATE, see these fancy words, in which he attempts to delineate patterns and preconditions, chronologies, and aftermaths of riots. Factors contributing to color violence in the United States and Britain. Oh, we read about the Britain War, the Revolutionary War, when they were fighting against the British troops. Yeah. Anthony Richmond, in a 1954 monograph, examined patterns of relationships between West Indian Negroes in England and other English groups in an attempt to see whether a general theory of intergroup relations based on American experience could illuminate that of Britain. and that's Richmond, 1954. He observed that different historical and cultural factors in the two countries might be expected to produce significant contrasts, but felt that similar patterns appearing in different social contexts could provide more convincing confirmation of a general theory than further re-examination of American materials. The purpose of this paper is to carry such comparative study a step further through examination of a particular variety of intergroup relations in the United States and England, relations culminating in social racial violence. In the United States and England, relations culminating in social racial violence. There are marked differences between historical patterns of colored-white conflict in the two countries, particularly those differences generated by a briefer history of a much smaller, both in absolute and in relative size, colored community in Britain. Similarities confirming a general theory of racial conflict are, however, no less remarkable. Violence is social when it is directed against an individual or his property, solely or primarily because of his membership in a social category. Thus, if a West Indian or a West African in Britain or a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant in the United States is assaulted because he is a West Indian or a West African or an Anglo-Saxon Protestant, this is social violence. If, on the other hand, he is a random victim of armed robbery because he happens to be in the right place at the right time, or if his home or place of business is randomly vandalized, there is violence, but not social violence. It's just a criminal act. Group violence against persons because of color, whether or not it is mutual, is particularly noticeable because of the saliency of the social characteristic involved, and in the United States has been of great social cost. And in the United States has been of great social cost. Research on urban race riots in the United States resulted in two findings, which are of relevance for general interpretations of intergroup relations. Grimshaw, 1959 and 1961. Both articles are reproduced in this volume. This right here is Grimshaw right here. Yeah, see, edited by Grimshaw, Alan D. Grimshaw. He said both articles are reproduced in this volume. The first is essentially confirmed by more limited English experience. The second cannot be tested with any assurance because of insufficient data. Both findings seem banal once stated, B-A-N-A-L. Both findings seem banal once stated. Neither has been stated with sufficient emphasis in the research literature. The first was that urban racial social violence in the United States has resulted not from conscious policy decisions of either the white or the Negro group, but rather from reactions of the dominant group to real or perceived assaults upon the accommodative structure. There may have been occasional instances when whites, for political purposes, manufactured threats by Negroes against the status quo, or where particularly militant members of the minority have espoused violence against whites as a tactical policy. In the large, however, when the Negro has stayed in his place, Negro-white violence has been very rare. This has been true not only during the current century, with widespread urban rioting in northern states, but in all historical periods of Negro-white violence in the United States. As long as the black man stays in his place, then violence is very rare. It's when the black man tries to be a man, when he rises to be a man, and take his rightful place as a man. Then the white man, white America, the woman too, they all rise up because now you cannot be a man, because the black man would dominate that too without even trying to. We just dominate everything. That's because the cosmos manufactured us. Yeah. The cosmos manifested us, the black man and the black woman. So, naturally, we do dominate things. We dominate everything. Everything we touch can turn to gold. And the white man, they automatically know. Dr. Francis Chris Wilson taught us that the white man said there is only one man, and that's him. Now, the black man, he could take the other positions. And Dr. Francis Cress Wilson said he did. She said the black man took every other position, but not the man. He has become like the woman, feminine, in touch with his feminine self, over in touch with his feminine self. He has become the baby, sleeping in a crib. I'm at the crib. He has, instead of being the man, he has, I don't know, defeminized himself, So I can see where they say, yeah, as long as the black man stay in his place, then yeah, Negro white violence has been very rare. And it's still like that today. It's still that same way today. Long as the black man stay in his place and be friendly. Stay in his place and just be friendly with, white folks. Then everything will be cool. But when the black man or even the black woman say, no, I'm finna go on and do my own thing. I got to get this done and that done. And they can see a little building up happening. And they okay. They probably be, legs shaking. That's all, just their legs shaking. But you keep building. Black America keep building up and adding on to it. Then you see their eye twitching. So they whole body over there shaking like that right there. And by the time we done built up another Black Wall Street, honey, they is over there looking cock-eyed, ready to just go off. They ready to run out of that paper bag and don't care which way they running out. Come out the bag on us. So yeah, and Black America know it. That's why we so hesitant, I believe. See, everything that I've been thinking about and questioning goes back to the violence, the trauma that we suffered collectively as a people. It goes right back to the violence that our people suffered. And because we ain't never got no healing. I don't know if I thought, or maybe I was under the impression that we got some kind of healing or some therapy after slavery, because that was basically all I knew was slavery. I didn't know about all this other torturing, and it actually was worse after slavery. To actually think that white folks did these things, these unmentionable things. But then, when I think about it and stuff, it's just like white folks could never do these things right here. When I think about it, and we know they did slavery. We know they did slavery. But see, we already done forgave slavery. We forgave slavery. We were able to look at slavery and talk about it and, make all the movies and watch it and stuff. So we kind of went through a little transparency with it, I guess, even though the horror of slavery was whitewashed. Because, it was way worse than it was how we faced it. It just seemed like it was, it was enslavement. But it was more than just enslavement. Keeping the mask on our people for 100 years because they wanted to escape and be free. And all over this country, all over this world, it's been that way against us. And now to look at it and not be like, dang, really, we really best friends with white folks. How did we come to be best friends with our natural enemy? How? Because we brainwashed. Yeah. We come to be best friends with our natural enemy. But each other, our true best friend, it's like we got so much animosity. Reverse psychology. They use reverse psychology on us. Just like they taught us that, they taught our ancestors that they had drapetomania, a mental illness for wanting to escape slavery. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Black woman, black man, you got to be crazy. You diagnosed with drapetomania because you keep escaping from slavery. And that's what they taught our people and stuff. And now it seems like, yeah, we might have drapetomania because we sure don't want to leave. We really don't want to leave. We don't want to face white America. We don't want to let the white woman know, oh, we know exactly who you are, how you are. See, it was this whole facade, like it was just a white man doing these evil things. Honey, the white woman was doing them too. Just as much she was doing them. And now, honey, her and him, the most sweetest thing you would ever meet. No, don't you look at Mr. Jerry like that face. Don't you think Mr. Jerry could ever do them things like that? Why? Because you don't? You probably don't know about these things right here either. See, that's why we got to decide whose side we on. We must decide whose side are we on. Because we can't keep excusing it. It's too late to talk about that now. What is that going to do? That ain't going to help us none. We ain't worried about that now. We got other people here in this country. We worried about this, this, and this. Somebody better be worried about the sanity of Black America. Our whole survival depends on it. If our mind, the rest of our collective mind cracks now, honey, yeah, we will be reliving history, repeating itself. Don't get it twisted, And this is not fear-mongering and stuff, because, hey, it might be some other people out there with you, Black America. For the simple fact that no one believed it. They thought Martin was talking to Black people when he said injustice against one is injustice. Oh, why would he be telling us that? We had never injustice nobody. He was telling y'all that, white folks. He was telling white folks that. Injustice against one is injustice against all. Now, it is for everybody, the collective. You should know that. But at that time in the context, he was speaking to white America to stop what they were doing. Everybody was imploring to white America, trying to implore to their sense of humanity. Do you got some mercy in you somewhere? But as you can see, we here now, and ain't a question been answered yet. Yeah, so, I don't even know how long we're going to read tonight, so let's just read anyway. Oh, with the exception of a brief period after the Civil War, the pattern closely approximated the classic accommodative pattern of superordination, subordination. Oh, wow. The pattern closely approximated the classic accommodative pattern of superordination, subordination, with the whites a continually dominant group. The most savage oppression, whether expressed in rural lynchings and pogroms, 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 whether expressed in rural lynchings and pogroms or in urban race riots, has taken place when the Negro has refused to accept a subordinate status. So when the Black man refused to, accept a lower status, then that's when you see the most savage oppression. That's what it say right there. Let me read it again because that's deep. With the exception of a brief period after the Civil War, And that was just a brief period after the Civil War. I bet you that was the time when the fellas came home and everything was good. It seemed like everybody loved the soldiers, and black men actually felt like, change had taken place, and then things went back to normal, you know. And I think that's when they said it was a brief period. And it was brief, y'all. It was like maybe 2 days or maybe 2 weeks. It was brief. But then that was when they had the celebration at Carswell Grove, and Joe Ruffin. Remember, we've been talking about Joe Ruffin. We've been learning about Joe Ruffin. Was on his way back to the celebration, 3,000 soldiers. They were the Harlem Hellfighters, and they was with the 369th Regiment. Yeah, in New York. And so Joe Ruffin was heading back to the celebration, and two sheriffs had went, a sheriff and a sheriff's deputy had went to the celebration, the parade for the soldiers. Why they was there, nobody know. Them two white men just went out there to start some trouble. Well, anyway, they saw Samuel, something, we'll just say Du Bois. And he was murdered by the police too. The real Samuel Du Bois, I think that was his name. But we'll say his name was Samuel. He was in the back car, and the sheriff deputy was in the front. And they were taking him back to jail. He was like, oh, there's Joe. There's Joe Ruffin. Joe will pay my bail. So they stopped Joe. And Joe had seen him in the car. So Joe walked over to the sheriff's car. He was like, oh, what's going on? What's happening here? And the sheriff got out. And he was telling Joe what happened with Samuel and stuff. And that he needed $75 to bail him. So Joe said, oh, I'm on my way to the celebration. I'll bring the $75 back later. And they knew he had it because Joe Ruffin was wealthy. He was a wealthy black man, honey, in that town and stuff. And white folks hated it. They hated it, honey. He had 2 cars. He had a truck. He had a farm. And he owned his equipment. And his animals that was on the farm and stuff. So Joe had money. And the white men didn't like that because he was wealthy. He didn't have to ask them for nothing. Matter of fact, other people would go ask Joe for money, and Joe would help them out, when they needed money and stuff. So they were passing cars. So Joe went over there. He was standing at the driver's side, and the sheriff had got out, and they was talking and stuff. And then Joe was like, oh, I got it, but I ain't got it on me. And then they were like, oh, well, we need to have the money now, to let Samuel go and stuff. And then something happened. And the gun went off, and the gun shot Joe, and it grazed his head, but it killed the sheriff. I was thinking that somebody else had came along to see what was taking the sheriff and the deputy sheriff so long, and maybe they had shot their gun off, but I don't know. We can read it again if you want to. It's in Red Summer. Matter of fact, that was the first story in Red Summer about Joe Ruffin. I remember he said, prosperity. I remember he said nobody suffered as much as him, and he said I didn't even do nothing. So anyway, what happened? The riot started after that because white folks heard about the shooting, and they thought that Joe Ruffin had shot the sheriff. When don't nobody know who shot, they just know it was a gunshot, and so that's why I think maybe somebody white, was following them or was coming along, to see, hey, what's the hold up? You're supposed to be bringing somebody back. And, I don't know. But anyway, they took Joe, they bandaged him up and stuff, and took Joe to jail. And then they moved Joe to another location because white folks had got upset. And so white folks were rioting, And white folks couldn't get Joe, but they got his best friend. His name was Willie Williams. And they pulled him out of his house and stuff and beat him, and they lynched him. And Joe's 2 sons, his daughter got away, but his 2 sons, they lynched both of them. They set the churches on fire and stuff. They threw newborn babies by the leg and threw them in the doorway of the fire when they were passing by, y'all. White folks did. Yeah, they said that they didn't know which one of Joe's 2 sons. They beat them, lynched them, and threw both of their bodies in the fire. One of them had a chain on his neck, and the other one had a rope. On his neck. And they said they didn't know the next day They didn't know which one got the chain and which one got the rope. The fire was that hot, and it just burned everything. Yeah, that's how it was being around white folks. Living around white folks, trusting white folks would at least be humane, non-violent, non-clownimal, but it was never like that with them. So we waiting for the shit to hit the fan again. Yeah. Because who's that? Maya Angelou said, somebody show you who they are, you best to believe them. Mm-hmm. All right. Did I read that to us again? I wanted to, because I wanted to express to us that brief period after the Civil War, it didn't last that long, and the pattern closely approximated the classic accommodative pattern of superordination dash subordination. And that's the classic way it was. White folks ruling over black folks. That's just what it's saying. Yeah. And the whites was a continually dominant group. They were always on top. They were always on top. They didn't never get under the bottom. The black folks never did get the jump on them. They never did get the best of them in anything. White folks was always the dominant one because they controlled black folks. They made them slaves. They had oppressed them. Through all of that, that's the only reason white America was able to remain dominant, by cheating, by theft, by murder, violence. Let's get it clear now. White folks was never dominant naturally in nothing. Nothing. And that's my opinion. Maybe in having white babies, they dominate in that. And considering that they having way less than they should to maintain their birth rate, they ain't even dominating that. The most savage oppression, whether expressed in rural lynchings, you know how they lynch black men in the rural South, how they beat them and then hang them up, and then they just whip their body and cut off their body parts. Literally cut off their body parts and then put them on a fire and burn them, roast them, just like they did John Hartfield and Jesse Washington. And then they drag them through the whole city. That's savage. Remember that type of savageness that white folks did, and that's how white folks do. When they violent, when they at that stage of rage. Now that's savage. Why they calling the black man savage? All the beasts, the super predator. But we done forgot about the real savage, the true savage. Like I seen someone with that on their shirt or a hat or something. Might have been the whole outfit. And I was thinking to myself, ooh, honey, do you even know the savage? Hell, they probably did though, right? I think I'm the only one that didn't know. But yeah, because I believe I would have been getting a divorce with this book. I sure would have, honey. Fuck the dumb shit. Yep. I'm sorry, Brad. I'm signing for divorce right now. You might as well sign it. Ain't nothing you can say. Yeah, this is over. This is a wrap. The only thing his ass would be able to say is, hey, we can denounce my whole lineage. We want your lineage to live, not this. We don't want this lineage to live. Other than that, I probably would have been like, no, that's all right. I'm going to live anyway without your ass. Yep. Sure would have, honey. Black America, we sure better think. We better think very, very hard. Because love, honey, now you're going to find yourself, needing rescued again. But let's read. I digress. The most intense conflict has resulted when the subordinate group has attempted to disrupt the status quo, or when the superordinate group has defined the situation as one in which such an attempt is being made. And British experience confirms the American that the reality of such an attempt is irrelevant. Belief in it alone being sufficient to generate conflict. Conflict in Negro-white relations in the United States has been conflict generated by the breakdown of an essentially unstable accommodative pattern. Essentially unstable because the subordinated group, Black people, has refused to accept its status and has had increasing power with which to challenge it. That's because Black people have refused to, accept being in the lower status, the status quo, and they had increasing power with which to challenge being in the lower status. Two obvious differences between colored white relationships in Britain and in the United States are suggested in the paragraph above. The first is that Britain, unlike the United States, has no history of a color problem of any magnitude prior to the First World War. Britain's experience since then has been similar to that of the United States, but conflicts have occurred on a much smaller scale, and the development of intergroup relationships, including patterns of prejudice and discrimination, has occurred at a different pace. The lack of a long tradition of conflict and violence in England has given the colored community a fund of goodwill and tolerance, which, in the view of many American white people, never existed or was long ago exhausted by Negroes in America. The second difference, of course, is the much smaller size of the colored community in Britain. Even the highest estimate of the size of the group places its number at around, say, 200,000 people. Substantially less than 1% of the total population. The total, and they right there, see, among others, Wickenden, 1958, and Glass, 1960. The total non-white population of the United States, constituted largely of Negroes, is slightly over 10% of the population and is probably close to 20 million people. There are several cities in the United States with non-white populations greater than 200,000, some with Negro populations larger than those of smaller African states. Colored people in the United States can, with increasing effectiveness, show the power necessary to challenge their subordinated status. Events of recent years, such as the nonviolent demonstrations of power in the Deep South, show the Negro population of the United States unwilling to wait for spontaneous concessions from the majority community. The colored community in Britain is too small and too weak to challenge the accommodative structure so sharply as to generate violence comparable to that which has occurred in the United States. The second major finding of the research on American race riots was a reaffirmation of the importance of external forces of constraint in the determination of the occurrence or non-occurrence of social violence. This conclusion is also obviously once stated, though perhaps less obvious from the perspective of events in Britain. British students of intergroup relations who have attempted to isolate the relationships among prejudice and discrimination and conflict have found the assertion that discriminatory behavior is merely the acting out of prejudiced attitudes to be, at best, an oversimplification. In the research on urban racial violence in the United States, an attempt was made to analyze factors involved in the development of violence proneness. See Grimshaw, 1962. In addition to a review of the many casual allegations about urban race riots, this required a careful examination of relations relationships among prejudice, discrimination, social tension, and social violence. If the concepts of prejudice, discrimination, social tension, and social violence represent real phenomena, it should be possible to state relationships among the variables which are so labeled. Relationships between prejudice and discrimination have frequently been stated, and attempts have been made to isolate relationships between social tension and social violence. Systematizing. Systematizing of the interrelationships among all four phenomena simultaneously had not been done. An attempt to do this is made in Grimshaw, 1961. And that's op.cit. It was from such an attempt that this second major conclusion emerged. When social tension occurs, it is not automatically followed by violence, nor, on the other hand, is social violence always preceded by a period in which there is a gradual buildup of social tension. Readers will be familiar with instances where organizations with a monopoly of the legal use of force, like the police or the military, have prevented, by a firm stance, the eruption of violence between categories defined by social characteristics. British readers may be less familiar with instances in which the police, because of partisanship or inefficiency, have been unable to control violence. They will also recall instances in which violence, perhaps spontaneously generated, quickly becomes social violence in the sense of this paper. For some illustrations, see Grimshaw, 1961. The claim has been made that major racial violence in the United States has occurred only when the police have been corrupt, partisan, ineffective, or some combination of these three characteristics. Such a claim fails to explain, of course, why violence has not occurred in some cities. The appearance of any of these characteristics, of course, is likely to be followed by the others. If the English constabulary, wow, constabulary, constabulary, that's a pretty word. If the English constabulary is as stout-hearted and honest as it is generally believed to be by Americans, who must make comparisons with the frequently scandalous actions of their own police. Large-scale racial violence is not likely to occur. If the English constabulary is as stout-hearted and honest as it is generally believed to be, large-scale racial violence is not likely to occur. It is not likely, however, that British police will be put to the test. Events of 1958 notwithstanding, there have been no major outbreaks of racial violence in England. Banton remarks, B-A-N-T-O-N, Banton remarks of this event in Nottingham and North Kensington. The disturbances were widely described as race riots, an expression which may cause people to overlook the fact that no one was killed and no one apparently severely disabled. Banton, 1959. The small size of the colored community in Britain and its relatively great dispersion makes unlikely the occurrence of the widespread violence which characterized major riots in the United States, such as those like the Chicago race riot in 1919 and Detroit in 1943, in both of which several dozen persons were killed and hundreds was injured. In this paper, attention will be focused on factors which contribute to social tensions and to generally more moderate forms of social conflict, erupting only occasionally as social violence. Here, there's a very high degree of comparability between British and American experience. The factors which have contributed to rising racial tensions in England have also been important in the creation of violence proneness in the United States. Violence proneness. Additional factors in the latter country, however, have received less attention in England and have been of less importance. Casual analysis of social conflict and of social tensions. Underlying conflict can take place on three levels. In the most fundamental sense, all general historical trends, changes in intellectual milieux, MILIEUX, changes in economic organization, changes in international relationships, urbanization, and industrialization have contributed to the development of social situations conducive to social conflict. A second variety of casual analysis, microsocial rather than macrosocial, involves the isolation and analysis of specific incidents which provide occasions for social disturbances. Given a sufficient level of social tension and or a sufficiently low level of efficiency in agencies of external control, any one of a variety of incidents can initiate conflict processes. Finally, a third set of factors consists of the characteristics of relations between conflicting groups, in which an opposing group is identified, in which accommodative relations are strained, and in which there are gradual increases in social tension and violence potential. In these sets of relationships, there are marked similarities between American and English experience. These factors vary in degree of specificity. These factors vary in degree of specificity as to time and locale. Yeah, specificity. Specificity. As to time and locale. They are commonly characterized by identification of opposing groups. They may be distinguished by the type of intergroup contact which they involve. Most notable in both countries are those areas of interaction where contact is direct and assault upon the status quo, therefore most notable. While small numbers of white people have been involved in Britain than in the United States, direct contacts between white and colored persons have occurred in housing, in employment, and in recreation. Processes of segregation, invasion, secession, and resegregation have characterized patterns of colored housing in both countries. Both mixed, Stepney, Stepney, and segregated, Cardiff, Cardiff. Both mixed and segregated patterns of occupancy can be found in Britain. But disputes have frequently occurred in areas where a transition from segregated to mixed patterns has begun. The most publicized events in the northern states since the Second World War in Cicero, Illinois, Trumbull Park in Chicago, Illinois, and in Levittown, Pennsylvania, have all followed the appearance of Negroes in previously all-white areas. Housing disputes were of great importance in the generation of social tensions, which culminated in the Chicago riot of 1919, one of the bloodiest 20th century disturbances in the United States. And you can read about that at Chicago Commission on Race Relations, 1922. A complex of personal, cultural, social, and economic variables raised housing to a position of great importance in the determination of patterns of prejudice and tension in intergroup relations. In the United States, as in England, a man's home is his castle. A man's home is his castle. But it is more than this. In more instances, it is his single most valuable economic possession. And any perception of threat to its value, whether warranted or not, is a threat to himself. And so far as colored persons are conceived of as having inferior status, living in the same neighborhood with them will, many whites believe, cause their own status to deteriorate. Oh, like when black folks move into the white folks' neighborhood and then white folks move out because they say, oh, the property gonna go down. Yeah, but then once one white person move out, then everybody move out. or they get the black person to move out by terrorizing them and stuff. That way their property can stay up and, you know. The cultural differences in white and colored in social activities, conceptions of morality, and the like, when, for example, he discovers his hours of sleep do not coincide with those of his new neighbors, frequently cause the white person to feel personally attacked. Wow, that didn't even make sense. Let's read that again. The cultural differences of white and colored in social activities, conceptions of morality, and the like, when, for example, he discovers his hours of sleep do not coincide with those of his neighbors, frequently cause the white person to feel personally attacked. It is true, furthermore, that when genuine housing shortages exist, colored movement into a neighborhood may cause some deterioration. Landlords, knowing the greater difficulty in finding housing which confronts the colored person, will charge him the greater rent for equivalent or even less desirable housing. So if he get a better house, then he gonna charge him more or the equivalent, you know, probably, yeah. Most likely, he gonna charge him more. The higher rent, frequently coupled with lower income, can cause one of two patterns to develop, both of which serve to cause housing quality to be damaged. The first is a fragmentation of dwelling units in which more and more persons are crowded into a single dwelling. The second is one in which so great a portion of the tenant's income must be spent on housing that he is unable to maintain the property. Where other housing, either public or private, is not obtainable, some landlords are content to let properties deteriorate, knowing that their tenants will have to stay in them and that municipalities cannot condemn the buildings because no alternatives are available. Thus, we find an instance of the self-fulfilling prophecy, and neighborhoods do deteriorate, and values do fall. Another area of interaction in which there is direct contact and in which social tensions have been generated in both Britain and the United States is that of work. Here, however, the differences in historical background in the two countries and differences in the size and character of the labor forces involved have interacted to produce a situation in contemporary Britain, which, while superficially similar to that in the United States, in reality is not. Large-scale violence over colored labor occurred a century ago in the United States, and in the years after the Civil War, colored participation in the labor force continued to be a source of social tensions. See Grimshaw, 1959, produced in this volume on page 000. Well, let's look and see. On page 00, where is 000? That's what it said. I guess it's in the very back of the book. Well, we just wanted to see it anyway, so we can read it. Yeah, I don't see it, but it said it's in this book. On page 000. Well, Negroes were denied the right to engage in some kinds of employment in both the North and the South, and were often paid lower wages for performing the same task as white. At the time of the First World War, however, labor shortages in northern industry precipitated very substantial migration of colored persons to northern cities and factories, like we read about when they went down south and told the black men, come up north, we got better wages for you, got a better life. And then when white folks got up north and stuff to start work, first of all, they didn't get paid like they said they was. So it was no better pay. It wasn't a better life because they all was sleeping in one house on the floor and stuff, you know. Sometimes it was just all the men because they didn't bring the women and the children with them. But so a lot of time it was just them and the men. Everybody sleeping in one room on the floor and stuff, you know, all propped up and stuff. And then the white folks started being angry and, you know, getting jealous and violent and stuff because they came there and it's like they took their job. Yep, so that right there, we did read about that happening. Some of the large-scale disturbances which occurred in the years during and immediately after the First War in East St. Louis and Chicago had disputes over jobs as an important contributory cause. It was about the jobs. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, I guess. In the years after the war, the complexion of the labor problem in the North changed. In a context of unionism quite different from that in Britain, Negroes had developed a not unwarranted suspicion of and hostility towards unions. Experiences with unions had meant one thing to the colored community: arification. Reification. Arification. Arification. Yeah. A reification of barriers to the industrial progress of the Negro labor. While some Negro leaders, vociferous, While some Negro leaders, a small but vociferous, vociferous minority, insisted that salvation lay within the Union, Negroes as a group were anti-union and remained so. As industrial unionism developed in the 30s, however, white labor leaders saw that as long as Negroes constituted a large block of anti-union labor, it would be relatively easy for large employers to break strikes through the importation and employment of Negro workers. A Negro labor force which had moved north in response to wartime needs had stayed on to be used by employers to stave off the encroachments of union power. Packing and steel strikes in the 20s and automotive and rubber strikes in the 30s forced the unions to bring in colored workers. These men stayed in unions and became good union men, in spite of frequent protests from the white rank and file. Frequently, however, official policies were honored only in the breach by union locals, and in spite of activities of the federal government, Negroes continued to be last hired and first fired. As the Second World War approached and industry stepped up in its pace, Negroes again found themselves in an increasingly tenuous situation. The defense industry was in desperate need of trained personnel, and the government undertook the responsibility of providing much of this training. In spite of some of the gains of the interwar period, much of this training was provided for whites only, and Negroes found themselves systematically excluded from opportunities for training and subsequent skilled employment. Concurrently, northward migration of Southern whites into industrial areas such as Detroit began to undermine the position even of those Negroes who were unionized. The period prior to the Detroit riot of 1943 was punctuated by a series of wildcat strikes in the Detroit area directed against the upgrading of Negroes. With increased employment for whites at the beginning of the Second World War and a subsequent closing down of federal work programs, Negroes again made up the bulk of relief cases and of the unemployed. They were taken into the military arms on a quota basis, were not incorporated into training programs, and were the last ones hired. Murmurs of Negro protests, never completely stilled, grew to an almost strident roar, and Negro leaders asked publicly why they should fight a white man's war to maintain Jim Crow. Why they should fight a white man's war to maintain Jim Crow. In 1940 and 1941, there emerged from the protests the March on Washington Committee, an all-Negro movement unprecedented in its inclusion of Negroes and Negro organizations from all across the whole spectrum of militancy. While the later activities of the March on Washington movement did not culminate in unqualified success, partly at least because of some of the government officials involved were either unsympathetic or felt that rigid enforcement of non-discriminatory practices might hurt the war effort. The activities of the MOWC either coerced President Roosevelt into issuing Executive Order 8802, appointing the Committee of Fair Employment Practices, or made it politically possible for him to do this. So either the president was coerced or it was just made politically possible. Commenters had not agreed in the evaluation of the effectiveness of FEPC. Some have emphasized its success, particularly in increasing Negro employment in government agencies. Others have claimed that the incorporation of colored persons in the labor force, particularly in defense markets, particularly in defense industries, resulted from the very real exigencies, exigencies of a wartime labor market. I never seen that word before either. Negroes and other colored persons were initially hired when there were no whites available, they claim, and once employed unions were compelled to organize them. That's when they finally got employment. By the time the war was over, certain types of employment, usually the dirty jobs, had become identified as ethnic jobs, and colored persons were so firmly entrenched in them that it was not possible to displace them. This, of course, is merely another form of segregation. Whatever the precise interaction of casual variables may have been, by the middle of the 50s, the position of the Negro in the labor movement in the northern and western United States seems to have become that of earlier migrant groups. Many of the craft unions, long the strongholds of anti-Negro sentiment, are now agreed, at least in principle, to equal rights for all people, all employees. Most of the gains made by colored labor in the war were maintained, although Negroes still hold a disproportionate share of dirty jobs. Negroes as a group have not attained job parity, while white fellow workers, findings of the United States Civil Rights Commission and current activities of the Negro Labor Congress within the AFL-CIO do not permit such an interpretation. Nonetheless, it is here, as in probably no other area of race relations in the United States, that Negroes have been able to break down the color barrier and become not only assimilated, but partly integrated as well. There have been no expressions of public concern by the leaders of organized labor in the years since the Second World War over too rapid incorporation of Negroes into the labor force, nor any suggestion that they should not be employed when whites are not. Pressure has come, rather, from Negro leaders who point to the higher rates of unemployment and the lower ratings of Negroes. George Meany, M-E-A-N-Y, the president of the AFL-CIO, has criticized A. Philip Randolph, the major Negro leader in organized labor, for pressing too hard, but concedes the right of Negroes to full and equitable employment under identical work rules. The review above of the labor history of colored Americans is, perhaps, suggestive of British parallels. Differences between the two countries would be more instructive in a look to the future than would be similarities. In a look toward the future, than would be similarities. The history of colored participation in the workforce in Britain covers a scant 4 decades, 40 years. The traditions of British trade unionism are, in the large, more liberal than those of much of the American labor movement, although Britain too has had its craft snobbery. Craft snobbery, yeah. More important, perhaps, is the much smaller relative and absolute size of the colored minority in Britain as contrasted to that in the United States. Colored workers in Britain first appeared in any numbers at all during the period of the First World War in response to pressures similar to those which precipitated northward migration of Southern American Negroes. Remember how the black people in the South ended up migrating to the North for the jobs and the better lives and stuff? It's kind of how it happened in Great Britain too. Because it said in response. Colored workers in Britain first appeared in response to pressures similar to those which precipitated northward migration from Southern American Negroes when they went down south and, and bribed them pretty much to move up north. They were engaged then, as they are to a certain extent to the present, in the maritime trades and in longshore work. During the period following the war and through the interwar years, there were occasional clashes, frequently generated by allegations that colored workers undercut white wages. The numbers involved were small. The government acted in what has been labeled a discriminatory manner, and that's Aliens Order of 1920 and Special Restriction Order of 1925. The numbers involved were small. The government acted in what has been labeled a discriminatory manner, and exposure to conflict was limited, both geographically and socially. With the onset of the Second World War, a series of immigration schemes were initiated with the joint purposes of relieving unemployment in the West Indies, providing labor for British war industries, and strengthening the bonds between Great Britain and the West Indies. The workers who came under these schemes, along with post-war immigrants from both the West Indies and West Africa, have been those involved in the tensions and disputes of the last decade and a half. These workers have had more varied participation in the labor force and in some instances have been highly skilled. It is an interaction between claims of discrimination made by these men and claims that they had jobs taken away, that they have taken away jobs from British workers that is at the root of current difficulties. That there have been discrimination is clear, both from statements of individual employers and from statistics of unemployment, which consistently show colored workers to be disproportionately unemployed. British writers have observed that here, as in the case of housing, a complex of factors, personal, which is prejudice, social, fear of status deprivation on the part of whites, extreme sensitivity on the part of colored persons, economic, threats to loss of income, and cultural, the lack of preparation for life in England, differences in work and consumption patterns, and the like, interact to contribute to the increase of social tensions. So it's saying British writers have observed that here, as in the case of housing, a complex of factors interact to contribute to the increase of social tensions. And all of those that I named were the complex factors. They all complex. It ain't no easy struggle to get through either of those: economic, housing, prejudice, or the fear. The discussion above notwithstanding, from an American perspective, it seems unlikely that there will be substantial increases in the magnitude of social frictions generated in the area of unemployment of colored labor. This will be true even in the event of a major increase in unemployment due to recession, which seems unlikely in the years ahead. The reason for this can be found in the essential powerlessness of the colored working force in Britain. Even if it were possible for the subgroups within the colored minority to come together and agree to act as a bargaining unit, it would not be possible for them to substantially alter current patterns of accommodation. There's no prospect of a wartime labor shortage similar to that of the early 40s developing again. And even if there were, a threat by the group to withhold their labor would be an inconvenience rather than a disaster. Similarly, a threat to organize against the trade unions as strike breakers would be of little effect outside of the limited number of industries, which would doubtless reject such offers even if they were made in fear of long-term consequences. If, as seems to be likely, colored persons in Britain gain increasingly diversified employment, major attacks on the status quo would be even more improbable. Government anti-discrimination legislation might have the effect of temporarily increasing prejudice and tension in the dominant group. This would have little impact on long-range possibilities of overt conflict. If, as seems to be the case, West Indian authorities are more carefully preparing their immigrants to be aware of the hardships which may await them in Britain, and if control over dishonest travel agents is asserted, increases in friction will be even less likely. Individual problems will continue, and some muttering from both whites and colored people can be expected. Major disorders seem very, very unlikely, though. A final area of direct contact should be mentioned. The problem of access to recreational and other public facilities have generated more social tension in Britain than it has in the United States. Although recently, lunch counter strikes, other sit-downs, wait-ins, and freedom rides have shown a change in emphasis in this country. Paradoxically, it has been the smaller size of the community, along with its social demographic composition, which has been responsible for the greater importance of access to public facilities as a tension producing factor in England. Prosperity. A consequence of segregation of absolutely large Negro and colored populations in the urban centers of the northern United States has been the development of autonomous subcities, with all Negro recreational institutions. In England, on the other hand, no cities, except perhaps those with the largest colored population, can support such segregated facilities, even were they considered desirable. A result has been that colored and white persons have been thrown into close contact, frequently in those situations which may be most prone to misunderstandings and conflict. Several of the disturbances which have occurred in Britain since the war have occurred in public houses or in the streets outside public houses at closing time. They just fighting in the streets. Other disturbances have occurred at public dance halls. Problems have been generated here which can be directly traced to the tremendously high sex ratio of the colored community. It has been only in recent years that whole families and single unattached women have joined in the stream of immigrants to Britain from the West Indies. The West African immigrants have continued to be largely male, and the same holds, with some exceptions, for the Pakistani and Indian immigrants. It's mostly male. Understandably, these unattached males have sought female companionship. Collins noted that colored men are resented when they consort with white women, as miscegenation is considered a challenge to white supremacy. And that can be found in Collins, 1957. Richmond claims that, with the possible exception of employment, the area of most intense prejudice against West Indian Negroes is that of sexual relations. Richmond, 1954. Most students of race relations in Britain have emphasized the low social and economic status of the women who have become involved with colored males. It seems likely that for many of these women, intermarriage and intercohabitation serve as a route to security which would otherwise not be available. But both the women and their colored consorts have been subjected to public vilification and abuse, and occasional physical violence too. It is difficult to determine the precise sources of antipathy over this social mixing of colored males and white females. While there has been a residue of colonial attitudes reminiscent of Kipling, it seems probable that more direct competition for female companionship is also involved. During the war, and to the lesser extent in the post-war years, American Negro soldiers in Britain have had, because of their somewhat higher incomes, an advantage in competition. The determination of these men to seek out white female companionship was not lessened by the stereotyped expressions which were brought to England by white American soldiers. Several dance halls closed their door to American Negro soldiers and West Indians alike during the war on the grounds that there will otherwise be violence. Oh, they said either they shut the doors or it's going to be violence. There seems to be some element of punitiveness in the response of West Indian males to the discomfort of whites in this area. And there have been expressions which suggest that sexual relations with white women have been interpreted as assault on the status quo by colored as well as white persons. In spite of all this, and in spite of the occasionally deprived socioeconomic backgrounds of white females who became involved with colored males, many of the relationships show remarkable stability, and several students have noted that the women frequently identify with their colored consorts, and in the case of women who have married Muslims who have converted to Islam. As the colored population grows in size, its demographic composition will become more normal, and more marriage will take place within the community. Nonetheless, interracial relationships will continue. Whether or not they will be the cause of antipathies which are further heightened can be doubted. It seems probable that when intergroup sexual relations are emphasized as a source of conflict, such attribution may screen more basic economic and social competition. Two further areas of high direct contact have been influential in patterns of intergroup relations in the United States: public transportation and education. These two areas have been of less impact on relations between colored and white people in Britain than employment, housing, and sexual relations. Nor have areas of indirect contact been of substantial importance in Britain race relations. In labor and employment, in housing, in recreation, in public transportation, and in school, there is continual evidence of direct assault upon the status quo. Another set of factors show the influence of activities either by colored persons or white who may not be involved in any contact whatsoever or in very little contact. Most whites in England, and to a somewhat lesser extent in the United States, continue to have little contact with Negroes, and the conflicts which occur seem remote. In the United States, several factors have influenced patterns of intergroup relations in ways which have been less evident in Britain. Colored participation in politics, the treatment of the Negro in the white press and of whites in the Negro press, and Negro involvement in crime, in relations with the police, have all contributed to social tension in the two communities. An apparently unanticipated consequence of segregated Negro housing and a concentration of Negroes in limited geographical areas in the urban north of the United States has been a sharp growth in Negro political power. It has been claimed that if Negroes vote as a bloc, they can control national elections. One thing is certain, no administration in a northern city with a sizable Negro population can ignore the importance of the Negro group. Y'all hear that? Of the Negro vote. It has been claimed that if Negroes vote as a bloc, they can control national elections. One thing is certain, no administration in a northern city with a sizable Negro population can ignore the importance of the Negro vote. In the long run, of course, this fact has ramifications in the areas of direct contact already examined. In the South, particularly in the past, but to a certain extent, even today, the very act of voting by a Negro was a breach of racial etiquette and for a cause for concern and occasional violence. Several major riots in the South grew either directly or indirectly, out of Negro political activity. Some of the current tensions in the American South has developed directly from attempts by Negroes to gain or regain the franchise, or some Negro leaders feel that the franchise is more important than access to schools, transportation, or other public facilities. The small size and relatively great dispersion of the colored community in Britain makes unlikely the development of political participation as an issue in intergroup relations. The role of the press in race relations is problematical. The role of the press in race relations is problematical. While there is virtually no press in Britain, several authors have emphasized the role of the press in the creation of anxieties and tension, and in the case of the 1958 disturbances, the spread of violence. The study of urban race riots in the United States included conclusions on the role of the press. Get down. Both the Negro and the white press have slanted news presentation. However, this may result from a reflection of readers' attitudes as seen by editors, rather than from a conscious policy. Studies in this area frequently fail to study the dimensions of attitudes, and they fail to make explicit the link between attitude and behavior. Biased news presentations probably reach already prejudiced individuals and reinforce rather than mold attitudes. Such reinforcement may raise levels of social tension. It is doubtful that this alone would create a situation of violence proneness. There are other networks of communication. Note, however, the discussions of the press in Wickenden and Glass, and the coverage of press reports in the summaries published by the Institute for Race Relations. Examination of available British materials suggests no major changes in this evaluation of the importance of the press. Wide newspaper and television, too, coverage of events in Nottingham and Notting Hill, and references to Teddy Boys, Teddyboys, may have some influence on suggestible youth. The influence of the mass media, however, was probably more in determining when disturbances took place than in whether they would take place at all. Similarly, agitation, whether by the Ku Klux Klan and the White Defense League or by the communists, can be discounted as having any major influence in creation of social tensions leading to violence. Given sufficiently high social tension, a variety of events could precipitate violence. It can be seriously doubted, however, that mass media coverage alone is responsible for major increments in tension. While the role of the mass media might be greater in England because of the reduced impact of other variables, it is also true that the press has taken a generally more responsible and less inflammatory position in Britain than it has historically in the United States. Because remember how in racial violence in Kentucky, 1865 to 1940, and it was telling about every single time the white media, the newspapers, And sometimes it would be more newspapers in one city, like 2 or 3, and they all would be embellishing the story, a Negro lynch 5 days from now, and they would embellish the story that the white woman was assaulted, she was raped, she was beaten, she was killed. And then they might embellish, oh my God, she was pregnant. And, it would get started like that and stuff. But that's what the media did, and that's what the media do now. It's just, it is more inflammatory now. The media ain't really calming things down. It ain't really helping things for Black America. I don't think so. Not the white media, mainstream media is not. But let's read. Negro crime and Negro relations with the police have been major, if unmeasurable, influences in the creation of social tensions between the white and colored communities in the United States. Richmond and Collins both state that police in England remark on a relative absence of adult crime and juvenile delinquency among the colored minority in Britain, and emphasize that a small segment of the community is responsible for a major portion of lawbreaking. This has not been true in the United States. Negro rates of crime, no matter how carefully defined and standardized, are consistently greater than those for whites. The causes may well lie in differential treatment of the Negro and in patterns of widespread social deprivation. The causes, however, are irrelevant, and whites respond to reported Negro crime with a generalized fear and antipathy. Negroes, in turn, expect differential and unfair treatment from law enforcing agencies, are therefore more likely to resist arrest, are therefore more roughly handled. Another example of reflective prophecy. Reports of incidents of racial violence in England suggest that colored persons have more frequently been arrested and that police have not always acted with complete impartiality. Nonetheless, it is doubtful that there is as widespread distrust and suspicion by the colored minority, nor as warranted, of the police in Britain as is true in the United States. While the situation may change, it is probably fair to say that these two problems, Negro crime as creating apprehension in the white community and Negro relations with the police as creating social tensions among members of the colored community, will not be of great importance in race relations in Britain, at least for the next few years. Yeah, so I guess it's saying, it really ain't concerned about the Negro problem right now. Maybe in the future it will. In the pages above, an attempt has been made to trace out the influence of several factors involved in the building up of racial tensions. No attempt has been made to assess weights of importance for the various factors, though it would seem that in England, some of them, for reasons specified, are of less importance than they are in the United States. References have been made to the essential irrelevance of incidents actually precipitating overt conflict. The claim has been made that, given a sufficient level of tension, almost any incident could serve to set off a disturbance. In concluding, attention is directed to 3 problems which cannot be treated here because of limitations of space, but which are nonetheless of considerable importance in an understanding of problems of intergroup relations in Great Britain and in the United States. The first of these has to do with major changes in the form of assaults upon the status quo of race relations in the United States, which have occurred in the last few years. The second one has to do with possible interactions of events and publicity of these events of racial conflict in the 2 countries. For example, that's that EG again. What does that stand for? But, for example, the coverage of the 1958 disturbances in Nottingham and North Kensington in the American press and British news on American events. Finally, some of the difficulties inherent in focusing Yeah, we ain't got long because I'm getting sleepy too. See, we'll stop right there. So let's just keep going. I know. Let me back up for a minute here. The second has to do with possible interactions of events and publicity of these events of racial conflict in the two countries. For example, the coverage of the 1958 disturbances in Nottingham and North Kensington in the American press and British news on American events. Finally, some of the difficulties inherent in forecasting patterns of interracial adjustment and conflict can be noted. In early 1960, racial conflict in the United States appeared in a previously unexperienced form. Demonstrations by Negro youth, largely students, were directed first against segregation in public eating facilities and then in public transportation. These demonstrations differ from previous patterns in the characteristics of the protesters, who are middle class and respectable, and in the tremendous restraint with which the Negro participants have acted even when subjected to considerable physical abuse by white youth. Example, the dropping of lighted cigarettes down the backs of Negro students seated at lunch counters in a silent quest for service. And the quiet acceptance, even courting of arrest. In view of the historical patterning of race relations in the American South, the restraint and apparent impartiality of most municipal officials and police is almost remarkable. Almost equal numbers of white people and Negro people, for example, have been taken into custody. The long-range consequences of these activities, along with major and again self-conscious assaults on the accommodative structure through legal pressures, cannot as yet be discerned. Social tensions have certainly increased, but changes in behavior are also taking place. Press coverage, it has been suggested above, has less influence on shaping racial attitudes within a country than is sometimes thought. It would be difficult to deny, however, that events in racial conflict in England have gained support for ardent anti-Negroes in the United States, and probably also in South America. It seems clear that the American press, including the mass circulation news weeklies, overplayed the significance of events in Britain. There were substantial tones of cast out the mote in thine own eye in American coverage. Time magazine daily expressed with the caption, now perhaps the English will stop giving us that more anti-color bar than thou stuff. That's the 8th of September, 1959. It is probably true that demonstrations of racialism anywhere in the world will be seized upon by anti-colored groups, whatever they are. Considerable courage, even foolhardiness, would be required to forecast major racial violence as a result of current events in the American South or North or in England, or even the patterns or even of patterns of continuing tension. It is possible, nonetheless, to note areas of change in the general patterning of race relations, which may affect probabilities, and that's Grimshaw, 1960. The forecasting of racial violence requires knowledge of the history and current status of three factors. One, the mode and pattern of the assault upon the status quo, its direct or indirect nature, the militancy with which it is pressed, and the areas in which it occurs. If, as had been asserted, violence results not from the conscious policy of the majority or minority group, the militancy with which claims for equal treatment are pressed will be of greater importance. In England, of course, the size of the communities involved will be important in the perception by the majority of the assault. The appearance of new tactics or of nonviolence makes even more difficult the forecasting of events in the arena of social conflict. Yeah, they sure meant to put it in some books. I'll tell you that. Number 2, the attitude and actions of agencies of self. The attitude and agencies. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more paragraphs, y'all. Let's just hang in there. The attitude and actions of agencies of external control. There's no direct relation between the level of social tension and the eruption of social violence. Social tension in England, as in the United States, will continue to be generated by assaults on the status quo. In Britain, it seems probable that police impartiality will restrain major violence. Changes in the attitudes, or at least behavior, of American police have had an undeniable influence in reducing the possibilities of violence in the current American sit-down and freedom ride campaigns. Though some large southern cities like Birmingham, Alabama, could still experience large-scale violence. Number 3, the nature of the accommodative structure itself. In the United States, Negro participation is now grudgingly accepted in areas previously forbidden. At the same time, areas considered secure and past interaction are being redefined. Some barriers of the status quo, previously unthreatened, are now becoming more rigid. Similarly, changes in the status quo will frequently have the effect of raising colored aspirations. Then new rebuffs generate greater tensions. The same processes of redefinition can be expected to be important in the further development of patterns of race relations in Britain. A comparison of colored and white relations in Britain and in the United States and their potentials for social racial violence seem generally to add support to general interpretations of intergroup relations and to theories of prejudice. Social tensions in Britain, as in the United States, can be seen to be generated by assaults on the status quo, namely, to be generated by the social structure itself. Some sources of social tension in the intergroup relations in the United States are not found in England. It can be shown that these differences result from the size and historical backgrounds of the communities in the two countries. It seems unlikely, furthermore, that the colored community in Britain will be able, in the years immediately ahead, to wield sufficient power to threaten the social structure to a point where heightened social tensions make possible the occurrence of major violence. On the other hand, now, this same importance makes unlikely major shifts in patterns of intergroup relations without the intervention of government authority. Implications for policy, however, are not properly examined in a paper such as this. And tomorrow we will begin with actions of police and the military in American race riots. And you know, in the other book, was that race violence in Kentucky? I think it was, or it may have even been, I think that was race violence in Kentucky, when the police and the military came and they ended up helping white folks. Yeah, they ended up giving white folks the weapons and attacking black folks. So we'll see what coincides from this to the other book. But I thank you all so much for your presence and your patience tonight. Oh, and we will get out of here early. It's like 2:30. Yeah, we will be out of here at least 15 minutes early. Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you all. Thank you all for being there. And we almost done. Look. Well, we still at half of the book, though, right? But yes, thank you all so much. I'm so proud of y'all. I am proud of us. We are going to heal Black America. Ooh, I can't wait till other folks find out that we are seeking the reason why Black America is so broken and so turned in on ourselves. We gonna find out, y'all. We gonna begin the healing. So is those that have already started, yeah, we're gonna end up catching up with them. Because it's time to heal our people. So is, and you know, we don't care who's in the way, who's finna get out the way. Because we gotta do this for us. So doing that's our first and final focus is healing Black America. Who taught you to hate yourself? Because we're gonna teach you to love yourself. Yep, we gotta transmute all of that. Oh, hey, Stone Gardner. Thank you so much. You are too, my brother. Or sister, whoever you are. I don't know. I'm just, thank you so much, everybody. Love is love. Freedom is freedom. That's what they say. Separation is the only race relation that works. Whites shouldn't be forced to live with non-whites. We aren't meant to live together. Sure ain't. Ooh-wee. Loud favors. Thank you for hosting this space, and thank to all of those in the chat for sharing knowledge and feelings. I'm gonna read all of y'all comments. Yep, I sure am. Oh, Black John Wick, I love you. I love all of y'all, and I'm so glad that y'all are here, you know, and I hope we have like minds, because Black America need healing. We need our healing. Everybody else, if they need healing, they better go get it somewhere else. Because we're not here to heal everybody else. We are here to find out who taught Black America to hate themselves. We are here to assist Black America in the healing that we need. And, you know, everybody else that need healing, I suggest they go get it, because we getting ours. You know, and if you don't resonate with this, you know, if it's irritating you, then yeah, you free to go. Go find you somewhere else where you don't have to be stressed and irritated. You know, we all want to grow and get past this, whatever this twilight zone. You know, we all want to get through this twilight zone. But I'm just saying, you know, for everybody in society here in America, we need to get our chance too. We need to get our chance too. Many other people, you know, that's here now, you know, they know what that feels like. And they here seeking asylum, and they know what they feel like. But here in America, some of us Black people don't even know what that feels like. We've never even had a life without being under white America, except for our Black Wall Street for the brief period that it lasted until they came and burned it down and, you know, destroyed everything. And since then, we ain't never been away from white America. But it's time to now. Yeah, they on their own now. We got to heal us. We got to make sure that our babies survive this new world that's coming up, because ain't nobody else doing it. Don't nobody else care about our children. Then they got the nerve to tell their children, oh, if you ever need help, if you ever need anything, you're lost or something. If you see a Black woman or a Black man, ask them. But ain't nobody ever helped us to get our personal freedom. Bunch of hypocrites. But yeah, you know, I thank y'all for y'all patience and your presence tonight, you know. But I know what we here to do. I know what I'm here to do. And if you ain't here for that, then yeah, you know, you can leave. You can leave and go somewhere else. And we still love you. You know, and still wish you safe and well-being. You know, we all here on this planet together. We all ain't meant to be together. We were supposed to, you know, look out for our race ourselves. We weren't supposed to get in here and think, oh, we're going to mingle, marry, and that's just it. No. White folks had it right. Yeah, white folks had it right as far as we concerned. Leave them with them, and we stay with us. They had it right all along. You know, that's what we reading about, racial violence. Racial violence, Black America. Try to find yourself back together again. Please try to find yourself back together again. The Black woman and the Black man. All of these petty issues we got between each other and stuff, squash it. Squash it. Find somebody, my sister, my brother, find somebody of your own that you can be with, you can build with. You want to spend your life with them. You want to wake up with that person every day. You want to go to bed with that person every night. In other words, you want them to be the first person you see in the morning, the last person you see at night. Find your mate, because we got to make this right for us. We got to make this right for our babies, our grandchildren, their futures, and our futures. Don't we want to be happy? We want someone we can be happy with. Then we got to fix ourselves. Because as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, that's who it is. That's who the cosmos ordained and divined me to be with, and you too. You're supposed to have black babies. That's why we're here, to prolong our lineage. Everybody just started marrying with everybody else. Nobody thought about it, But we thinking about it now, Black America, because for us, honey, they weakening, they lessening our numbers. We got to live on, Black America. We got to make sure our lineage lives on, And with that, I'm going to let y'all get some rest. I'm going to get us out of here early tonight, and peace and power to the people. Yep, I love you too, my brother.